She slept with my husband, shattered our marriage, and now she wants me to bless their wedding. So I put on my best dress, walked into the venue, and smiled because I was about to make sure this wedding would never happen. Yes, you heard that right. After everything she did, after taking the man I built my life around, after worming her way into the cracks of our marriage like a parasite, she had the audacity to send me a wedding invitation. It came in a pale pink envelope tied with a gold ribbon like it was some kind of fairy tale. And inside, in her perfectly curated handwriting, she asked me if I could make a short speech at the ceremony. It would mean the world to us. She wrote like this was just another family reunion and not a cruel joke at my expense. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even tear the damn card apart. I just stood there holding it in my hand as something cold and sharp settled inside me. That was the moment I stopped grieving and started planning. They wanted a blessing. I'd give them something unforgettable. There was a time when I believed Alex and I were unbreakable. We met in our late 20s, two people chasing passion, purpose, and maybe something that felt like home. I was a freelance illustrator, mostly working on children's books, while Alex was a young architect with wild ideas and a heart full of ambition. What started as a shared ride to a friend's engagement party turned into coffee dates, midnight walks, and hours spent daydreaming about a future that always included each other. Alex wasn't flashy. He wasn't the type to flood me with flowers or grand gestures, but he remembered the little things, how I hated the smell of cucumbers, how I loved thunderstorms but feared loud knocks, how my hands trembled whenever I talked about my father. And I loved him not because he was perfect, but because he made me feel safe, seen. Our wedding was small, imperfect, and utterly us. Backyard chairs, fairy lights, and a homemade cake that leaned dangerously to one side. I wore a secondhand dress with a tea stain that no one noticed. He cried before I even walked down the aisle. Everyone laughed when the wind blew out our candles, but I remember thinking that even the wind was just trying to be part of our moment. After that, life rolled forward. We bought a little fixer-upper just outside the city. Weekends became a dance of paint, hammers, and mismatched tiles. I gave up a promising studio offer so I could work from home and support Alex through his long nights and tight deadlines. He used to leave me notes in the margins of his blueprints, little sketches of us, hearts hidden in steel beams. We didn't have children, though we tried. There were months of hope, then silence, then grief wrapped in sterile doctor visits. I blamed myself more than I should have. Alex said all the right things. We still have each other. You are enough. But I saw the shift, the quiet, the ache he never named. Still, we kept moving. We had our Sunday rituals, pancakes and the newspaper, even when neither of us read much past the headlines. We took road trips with broken GPS signals, danced in the kitchen to 90s rock, held hands under the table at dinner parties. Ours was a life stitched together with intention and compromise. Then came Jessica. She was my stepsister, technically. Her dad married my mom when I was 15, and suddenly I had this loud, magnetic girl with a razor-sharp smile in my house. Jessica always wanted attention, not love, not warmth, just the spotlight. And if she couldn't have it, she'd make sure no one else did either. At first, she tried to befriend me, but it didn't last. She made backhanded comments about my clothes, flirted with guys I liked, and lied effortlessly when caught. Once during a Thanksgiving break, I found her wearing one of my dresses, posing in front of the mirror like she lived in my skin. When I confronted her, she laughed. "Relax," she said. "It looks better on me anyway." After I left for college, I rarely saw her. Holidays were civil but cold. When I got engaged, she didn't even send a card. But then she started showing up more. Family dinners, birthdays. She'd hug Alex too long, ask him too many personal questions. I noticed it, but I dismissed it because I didn't want to believe she'd do it again. Because deep down, I remembered what she was capable of. Still, I thought Alex was different. I thought what we had was stronger than her games. I thought love, real love, could never be undone by someone like her. I was wrong. Sometimes I wonder if the cracks had already begun forming and I just didn't want to see them. Like the time I found her lipstick on one of our guests' towels, she claimed it was from a friend. Or the night she stayed over after a storm knocked out power and I woke up to find them laughing in the kitchen at 2 a.m. Too close, too comfortable. But I shook those thoughts off. I blamed my insecurities, not their behavior. Because when you love someone, truly love them, you build excuses faster than walls. And Jessica knew that. She didn't just go after what I had. She waited until she was sure I wouldn't fight back. And Alex? He forgot who we were before she reminded him of who he used to be. Young, desired, free. Looking back, I realized I gave them both too much credit, and worse, I gave them too much power, but not anymore. The first sign was the silence. Not the kind you fight through or cry over, the kind that creeps in slowly, so quietly you don't even realize it's there until it's all you can hear. Alex started coming home later. First, it was work, deadlines, clients, permits. Then it was traffic. Then it was nothing at all, just a text. Working late. Don't wait up. At first, I didn't question it. I knew how demanding his projects were. But then it became every night, every weekend. He'd come home smelling like someone else's cologne, not mine, not his. And I'd tell myself it was from the office, some handshake or hallway hug, something harmless. But harmless things don't make you flinch when your husband kisses you on the cheek like a stranger. He stopped asking about my work. I'd mention a new client, a new project, and he'd nod, eyes glued to his phone. I told myself we were just tired, just busy. That love changes over time, right? Becomes quieter, more practical. That's what everyone says. Then Jessica began appearing more often. At first, it was occasional family birthdays, mom's anniversary, but then she started texting Alex directly. Hey, I'm in town. Want to grab coffee? Need a guy's opinion on this thing. I only found out because his phone buzzed one morning and her name lit up the screen. My chest tightened, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be the jealous wife. I wanted to trust him. She'd show up at our house unannounced, always dressed like she was going somewhere else. Too polished for a casual drop-in. She'd lean in when she talked to Alex, laugh a little too loud, touch his arm like it belonged to her. I watched from the kitchen as she poured wine into his glass without asking, as if she knew exactly what he liked. Once, she left her lip balm on the nightstand in our guest room. Another time, her perfume lingered on his scarf. I brought it up gently, teasingly. Jess sure is comfortable here. Alex shrugged. She's just friendly. You know how she is? Yes, I knew exactly how she was, but I kept brushing it off because admitting the truth meant facing something I wasn't ready to confront. That the man I loved might be choosing someone else. That I might not be enough. One night I made his favorite dinner. Slow roasted lamb with rosemary, mashed potatoes, and that stupid red wine he liked that always gave me headaches. He didn't show. No call, no text, just silence. I waited until midnight, then packed everything into containers and stacked them neatly in the fridge. When he finally walked in at 1:30 a.m. and smelling like whiskey and something floral, I didn't ask where he'd been. I just said, "There's food, if you're hungry." He didn't eat. He didn't touch me for weeks. I remember standing in front of the mirror wondering if I was still beautiful, if he still saw me, if Jessica had somehow become younger, shinier, more appealing. I started going to the gym again, bought new makeup, dyed my hair darker, but none of it mattered. Because it was never about me not being enough. It was about him forgetting what we'd built. Jessica didn't need to take him overnight. She chipped away at us slowly. She inserted herself into the spaces where love had grown quiet. And Alex let her. I began sleeping with my phone under the pillow, hoping for a message that said, "I miss you," or I'm sorry, or anything that sounded like the man I married. But all I got were alarm reminders, meeting notifications, and the occasional, "Don't forget to buy dog food." We didn't even have a dog. Eventually, the space between us wasn't just emotional, it was physical. He moved to the guest room because of his back. I stopped setting an extra plate at dinner. I stopped asking if he'd be home because somewhere deep down, I already knew the marriage wasn't dying. It was already dead. I started keeping a journal again, something I hadn't done since college, not for memories, but for survival. I wrote down every small slight, every lie I let slide, every night I cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't hear me. I wasn't trying to build a case. I was trying to convince myself I wasn't crazy. Because gaslighting doesn't always sound like denial. Sometimes it sounds like you're overthinking, or don't be dramatic, or worse, silence. He used to tell me I was his best friend. Now I felt like an unwanted roommate in my own life. And yet I stayed. Not because I was weak, but because when you've poured years into someone, you want to believe there's still something left worth saving. But deep down, I knew. And Jessica wasn't just visiting. She was replacing me. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because I had spent the entire morning baking, something I hadn't done in a while. There was this small flicker inside me that wanted to reconnect, to salvage what little we had left. I made lemon bars, his favorite. Arranged them on a plate the way he liked, with powdered sugar dusted just enough to look effortless. I texted him around noon, "Want to meet for dinner, just us." He replied an hour later, "Can't tonight, the client meeting ran late. Rain check?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe him. The other part, the quieter, wiser part, was done making excuses. Something in me clicked. I grabbed my coat, keys, and drove to his office building. I didn't tell him I was coming. I just wanted to wait downstairs, surprise him with a smile, maybe shake the dust off whatever intimacy still existed between us. But when I got there, the receptionist looked confused. "He left around 30 minutes ago," she said. "Oh," I replied, forcing a smile. "Must have forgotten something." I waited outside in my car, engine off, rain tapping against the windshield. Then I saw him. Alex walked out of the building wearing that camel trench coat I'd bought him last Christmas. He didn't look rushed. He looked relaxed. And then Jessica appeared beside him. She was laughing at something he said, her hand brushing his arm. They walked in sync like a couple used to being close. No hesitation, no shame. They didn't notice me. I followed from a distance, heart pounding, hands ice cold. They ended up at a small restaurant near the waterfront, candlelit tables and soft jazz from the speakers. Not a client meeting, a date. I parked half a block away and watched through the window. At one point, he reached across the table and touched her face, the way he used to do with me when he wanted to show affection, without saying a word. I felt the floor of my world crack beneath me. I didn't storm in, I didn't throw a drink or create a scene, I drove home. He came back around midnight. I pretended to be asleep. He smelled like wine and her perfume. He didn't even shower. The next morning, I waited for him to leave before going into action. I took his phone. I had learned the passcode months ago, an old habit of trust that had turned into quiet desperation. I went into his messages first, then emails, then photos. It was all there. Conversations that dated back over a year, late-night messages, intimate selfies, her telling him she wished I would just go away, him calling her my real peace. There were hotel bookings, shared documents labeled Our Future. One video I couldn't even finish watching. I took screenshots of everything, sent it all to my own email, backed it up, dated and organized. Then I sat in silence. There is a kind of heartbreak that feels loud, wailing, breaking plates, screaming into the night. But this wasn't that. This was quiet. This was numb. I left the house, drove straight to my mother's, She opened the door and knew instantly something was wrong. I showed her the screenshots. I watched her expression go from confusion to shock to fury. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just pulled me into her arms and said, "We're going to fix this." That weekend, we hosted a dinner party. Everyone was invited, my stepfather, cousins, mutual friends, even Jessica. Alex thought it was just a family thing. He brought a bottle of wine. Halfway through dinner, I stood up and clinked my glass. "I want to thank you all for being here," I began. My voice didn't shake. "I have something to share." I connected my phone to the living room projector and started the slideshow. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts, a few audio clips. The room fell silent, then exploded with gasps and murmurs. Alex's face drained of color. Jessica sat frozen, mouth slightly open, a fork still in her hand. "This," I said, gesturing to the screen, "is what's been happening behind my back for the past year. My husband and my stepsister, planning a life while dismantling mine." My mother stood beside me, arms crossed. My stepfather looked at Jessica and whispered, "How could you?" Jessica started crying. Alex muttered something about being sorry, but it was too late. Everyone saw who they really were. Right? For the first time in months, I felt something close to free. Alex left the house that night. He didn't say where he was going, and I didn't ask. He slammed the door like that would somehow make him the victim. Jessica stayed behind for a moment longer, maybe expecting someone, anyone, to comfort her, but no one moved. She left in silence. After everyone was gone, I sat on the couch with my mother. We didn't speak for a long time. She just held my hand. I remember staring at the blank TV screen, seeing my own reflection and not recognizing the woman in it. But there was no more denial, no more hope, just clarity. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce. He didn't fight it. Maybe guilt got the better of him, or maybe he thought he could slide into a new life with Jessica without obstacles. But I wasn't going to let them rewrite the story like I never existed. I told him I wanted the house, and I got it. I told him to pack his things when I wasn't home, and he did. I erased every trace of him, his photos, his scent, his name on the mailbox. I changed the locks, changed the sheets, changed the chapter. And as for Jessica, she stopped coming around. I didn't hear from her for weeks until the invitation arrived. But that's another story. The silence after divorce is louder than any argument. At first, it was almost peaceful. No more lies. No more pretending. I didn't have to brace myself every time Alex's keys turned in the door. I didn't have to check my reflection before facing him, wondering if I looked too tired, too old, too invisible. But that peace didn't last. It quickly gave way to a weight I hadn't expected, the kind that settles into your bones, makes everything harder. Getting out of bed, brushing your hair, making a sandwich. I'd open the fridge, see food, close it again. I'd stand in the shower for 30 minutes, water turning cold, and not feel a thing. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was erasure. 12 years of shared life, gone in a month. His toothbrush, his slippers by the bed, the way he used to hum while making coffee, all vanished. And in that vacuum came the questions. Was I not enough? Was I too much? How long had he been slipping away? While I smiled through it. My mother tried. She brought soup, flowers, books about healing, but none of it stuck, not at first. I smiled to make her feel better, not because I believed anything she said. Friends texted, "Let's do lunch. You need a girls' night?" I left them on read. Nights were the worst. That was when the memories crept in uninvited. I'd remember the night Alex and I slow danced in the kitchen after our power went out, or the way he whispered, "I got you," when I was panicking before surgery. Were those moments lies too? Or was that love real until it wasn't? One night, I found myself scrolling through Jessica's Instagram. I told myself I was just curious, but it was more than that. I wanted to see if she looked guilty. She didn't. There she was, sun-kissed, smiling, clinking glasses with Alex in some vineyard. The caption read, "New beginnings with my forever." I threw my phone across the room. The next morning, my stepfather called, said Jessica wanted to have a conversation, that she believed things had been misunderstood. I laughed. Then the invitation came, a thick white envelope addressed to me in handwriting that mimicked wedding calligraphy. Inside was a formal invitation to Jessica and Alex's wedding, along with a personal note. "Dear Sis," it began. I stopped reading. When I picked it back up later, I saw her words. "I know things have been tense, but we'd love for you to be there. It would mean a lot if you could say a few words, maybe share a happy memory of Alex, just to show everyone we're one family now." I read that sentence at least 10 times. My hands shook. My jaw clenched. I wanted to scream, to burn the paper, to drive to her house and throw it in her face. Instead, I laughed. It was the kind of laugh that comes from disbelief. Sharp, breathless, a little broken. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't journal, I didn't even sleep. I've planned. Because if Jessica wanted me at that wedding, then I would go. And she would regret ever asking. I started thinking about all the ways I had made space for them, how I had stepped aside in my own life without realizing it. Jessica had always known how to take. What made this different was how easily Alex let her. But something shifted that night. Maybe it was rage, maybe it was survival, but a new kind of energy surged through me, not loud or impulsive, but focused. I started walking every morning, no music, just my thoughts. I deleted the old playlists we used to cook to. I made a new one. I changed my phone background. I painted the guest room. I began to reclaim corners of my life inch by inch. One morning, while reorganizing a drawer, I found an old USB stick Alex had once used for backup files. Out of habit, I plugged it in, and that's when I found them. Screenshots, emails, photos, not just of him and Jessica, but of Jessica and other men. Some dated back years, some while she was still just a friend in our lives. I stared at them, stunned. Some were clearly romantic. Others suggested even more. And then I smiled, not out of joy, but purpose, as if they wanted me to bless their union, and I would bless it with the truth. The plan wasn't fully formed yet, but the pieces were there. And this time I wouldn't cry in bathrooms or wait for someone to save me. This time, I'd walk into their perfect little day, holding all the receipts. Healing doesn't come like a sunrise, it comes like fog. Thick, slow, uneven. The morning after I found those files on the USB, I didn't feel triumphant, I felt raw. But raw was better than numb. Raw meant I could still feel something. Anger, disgust, betrayal, and beneath it all, a flicker of power. I started small. I got out of bed, put on jeans instead of sweatpants. I went to the grocery store without sunglasses and held my chin a little higher. I stopped skipping therapy appointments. My therapist, Nina, was a quiet woman with sharp eyes who rarely told me what I wanted to hear. She told me what I needed. "Closure's not justice," she said once. "But sometimes truth can be." I hold on to that. Every day I gave myself a task: clean out a drawer, take out the trash, delete old voicemails, make one healthy meal. I wasn't trying to be okay. I was building scaffolding, one piece at a time. Meanwhile, the wedding was drawing near. Jessica and Alex had set the date fast, probably to ride the wave before guilt caught up. I never RSVP'd, but that didn't stop Jessica from texting me twice. "Hope you're still coming, it would really mean the world to us." I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on assembling my own form of truth. I went through every file on that USB drive. I cataloged names, dates, emails, even screenshots where Jessica flirted with multiple men while still messaging Alex sweet nothings. One message stood out in particular. She called Alex her plan B in case things didn't work out with the others. I nearly choked when I read that. I called my lawyer friend, asked her how to protect myself legally if I presented certain materials publicly. She gave me a list of do's and don'ts. I followed them to the letter. Then I began crafting the moment. I bought a sleek, elegant dress, black, simple, with a neckline sharp enough to cut glass. I booked a makeup artist, got my hair done, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to walk in like armor had been built into my skin. The night before the wedding, I slept better than I had in months. When the day came, I arrived right on time, enough to not look eager, late enough to be noticed. I walked in alone. I didn't need anyone by my side. Jessica spotted me first. Her smile froze for a second, then returned, stretched too tight. "You made it," she said, coming over in her lace gown. "I was starting to think you wouldn't." I tilted my head. "And miss your big day?" "Never." Alex avoided eye contact. "Good." The ceremony began, vows, tears, the works. I sat in silence, hands folded. Then came the reception. The moment. One of her friends came up to me, "Hey, Jessica said you might say a few words." I stood slowly, the room quieted. I walked up to the microphone and smiled. "Jessica asked me to speak today, said it would mean a lot." I paused. "She's right, it does mean a lot, because today isn't just about love, it's about truth." I pulled out the flash drive, and Jessica's truth deserves to be seen in full. Gasps, whispers, her face turned white. I plugged it into the projector. I let it roll, and then I walked away. The first image flicked onto the screen, Jessica in someone else's bed. Then came the screenshots, the flirtatious texts, the timelines that overlapped too perfectly to be coincidence. Laughter stopped, forks clinked against plates. A few guests even stood to get a better view. Jessica gasped, "This is a joke. She's lying. These are fake." But the dates were time-stamped, the messages were real. Her voice in the videos was unmistakable. Alex stood up slowly, mouth open, color draining from his face. He looked from the screen to Jessica, back to the screen, then down at his shoes. "What the hell is this?" he finally said. Jessica turned to him, grasping for his arm. "Alex, please, she's twisting it." But he yanked his arm away like her touch burned. "You were sleeping with other people while telling me you loved me?" The room had gone silent again. Even the music stopped. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. I didn't need to. Outside, the sky was unusually clear. I walked down the steps, heels clicking, feeling 10 pounds lighter. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen, not as the woman scorned, but as the woman who refused to stay broken. Jessica once stole my husband, my life, but I took my voice back. And that was something she could never touch. I thought that would be the end. I thought exposing the truth at their wedding would be the last chapter in this nightmare. I would walk away, they would implode, and I could finally begin again. But drama doesn't die quietly, not when it's been fed by years of secrets. 3 days after the wedding, I got a call from my stepfather. He didn't say hello. "He broke up," he said flatly. I didn't respond right away. "Left her?" I asked. "He stormed out after your presentation. She tried to explain, but he wouldn't even pack his things. Just left his ring and walked out." I didn't know how to feel. I should have felt vindicated, relieved, maybe even a little smug. Instead, I just felt tired. My stepfather sighed. "She's been calling me non-stop, crying, wants to know if you'll talk to her." I laughed bitterly. "She's out of her mind. She says she needs closure." "No," I said, "she needs consequences." And I hung up. I thought that would be it, but then Jessica posted something that changed everything. a long-winded Facebook post playing victim, saying she was blindsided at her wedding, that I had fabricated evidence, that Alex had betrayed both of us. Then the kicker, despite everything, I still believe in love. I still believe people can change, and I forgive those who try to destroy what they don't understand. I stared at the screen, rage building in my chest. She was spinning the narrative, painting herself as misunderstood, spiritual above it all, and people were buying it. Comments poured in, support, sympathy, prayers. So I decided I wasn't done. If she wanted the public eye, I'd turn on the floodlights. I uploaded a folder online, password protected, and sent the link to 2 people I trusted in the family, people who knew how she operated. I didn't include everything, just enough. The timeline, the texts, the names of the men she played while with Alex. And then I waited. 2 days later, it went viral within our circle. Screenshots leaked. A cousin called me laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. An aunt texted, I always knew she was shady. Jessica's post disappeared. So did her account. Then Alex showed up at my door. I hadn't seen him since the wedding. He looked small, not thinner, not disheveled, just deflated, like someone had cut the strings inside him. I need to talk, he said. Crossed my arms. Why? You want to cry on my porch now? He winced. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything, for letting her in, for not seeing what she was. I didn't say anything. She used me, he added. And you let her. He nodded. I deserved what you did. At the wedding. I don't blame you. There's a long silence. I've started therapy, he offered, trying to figure out why I let it all happen. That's great, I said flatly, but I'm not your redemption arc. He looked down, ashamed. Then he handed me an envelope. You should have this. It's your half of the lake property. I signed it over. I took it without a word, closed the door before he could say anything else. I stood there for a long time, envelope in hand, heart pounding. Not because I still loved him, but because I finally didn't. And that, more than revenge, felt like freedom. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, not to numb anything, but to mark something. A small ceremony for the woman I used to be. The woman who cried in silence, who apologized for other people's bad behavior, who accepted breadcrumbs and called it love. I walked around my house barefoot, letting the wood floor cool my feet, the quiet fill my lungs. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a ghost inside my own life. I sat down at my desk, pulled out my journal, and wrote 3 simple words. I survived her. Not just Jessica. The years of competition she forced me into, the subtle digs, the forced comparisons, the betrayal, the manipulation, the fake smiles. I survived her, and I was still standing. I didn't need Alex's apology, or his property, or anyone's validation. Because for the first time since this all began, I wasn't just reacting. I was choosing me, not revenge, not chaos. Peace, real peace. And that was the final act she would never understand. A week later, I donated the last box of Alex's things to charity. No ceremony, no fire pit, just a drop-off. On the way home, I played music loud, windows down, letting the wind undo what years of control had tightened. Somewhere between the traffic lights, I realized I was humming, really humming. Not for show, not to pretend I was okay, because I was starting to be. There would still be days that stung, I knew that. Healing isn't a straight line, but now I had my own rhythm again, and the silence that used to haunt me, now it sounded like peace. Peace didn't arrive with a grand announcement. It showed up slowly, almost shyly, like sunlight through thick curtains. At first, it felt foreign. I kept waiting for the chaos to return, but when the phone didn't ring with drama and my chest didn't clench each time I checked my messages, I realized the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. I took a solo trip for the first time in years, rented a cabin near the coast, no itinerary, no expectations, just me, a suitcase, and the sound of waves crashing like they were washing away everything that had come before. Mornings were the best part. I'd sit on the porch with coffee and watch the sea breathe in and out, that rhythm so steady, so indifferent to human mess. It calmed me in a way I didn't know I needed. I wrote again, nothing grand, nothing public, just pages and pages in a notebook, some of it angry, some of it tender, most of it is honest. I cried less. I smiled more. I reconnected with old friends I'd unintentionally pushed away during the years I was with Alex. One of them, Marcy, even flew out to join me for a weekend. We laughed like teenagers again, wine in hand, telling stories we'd already told 100 times. "You're back," she said softly one night, looking at me over the fire pit. "I think I'm new," I replied, because that's what healing is, not a return, a rebirth. Back home, I made changes, little ones that felt big. I painted my bedroom a deep, moody green. I bought new dishes. I stopped saying yes when I meant no. I started keeping fresh flowers on the kitchen table just because they made me happy. One afternoon, I ran into Alex at the farmer's market. He looked fine, not miserable, not great, just a man buying apples. We nodded politely, no bitterness, no words. That night, I didn't replay the encounter 1,000 times in my head. I just went to sleep. Jessica moved out of state. I didn't hear from her again, and I didn't need to. Because the story wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. And somewhere between grief and growth, I found a new version of myself, one who doesn't shrink to make others comfortable, one who doesn't chase love that has to be stolen, one who knows that peace is not the absence of pain, but the presence of self. I didn't forgive them. I forgave me. For staying too long, for believing too hard, for loving people who didn't know how to be loved without hurting someone else. And that forgiveness, that was my real blessing. Eventually, I returned to work with more clarity than ever. I started saying no to projects that drained me and yes to things that excited me, even if they scared me. I pitched a bold idea in a team meeting, and it was green lit. My boss said he hadn't seen me this confident in years. Maybe he hadn't. I wasn't the same woman who used to second guess every word in her emails. I started volunteering at a community art center on weekends. I met people who didn't care about the past I came from, only the person I was now. One of them, a quiet man named Theo who taught photography to teens, asked if I wanted to grab coffee after class one day. I hesitated. Then I said yes. Not because I was ready for love, but because I was ready for new. We talked for hours about books and music and what it means to start over. At one point, he asked, "What made you leave your old life?" I didn't flinch. I didn't leave. I said I reclaimed myself. He smiled like he understood. We're still just friends. Maybe we'll stay that way, maybe not. But for the first time in years, I'm not desperate to know. I no longer measure my worth by someone's ability to choose me, because I've already chosen myself. And that is the best love story I've ever told. On the first anniversary of the day everything unraveled, I didn't light a candle or cry into a pillow. I packed a picnic, drove to a hilltop, sat under a tree, and wrote myself a letter. It wasn't about grief, it was gratitude. For the woman who walked through fire and didn't let it turn her to ash. For the silence that became sanctuary, and for the second chance I gave myself without asking for permission. When I drove home that evening, windows down, heart steady, I realized something. I was no longer surviving. As living. If you're still here, still listening, thank you. This wasn't easy to share. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't polished, but it was true. Maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've stood in a room full of people and realized you were utterly alone. Maybe you've wondered if you'll ever feel like yourself again. Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me back then. You're not weak for falling apart, you're brave for piecing yourself back together. No one teaches us how to recover from this kind of pain. There's no guidebook for rebuilding your life after someone burns it to the ground. But you learn one small, defiant act at a time. Getting out of bed, telling a friend, saying no more. Those are victories too. It's easy to become the bitterness, to let the hurt calcify and turn you into someone you don't recognize. But you don't have to carry their choices forever. You can set them down. You can walk away. You can redefine what strength looks like. For me, strength wasn't revenge. It wasn't the wedding sabotage or the final showdown. That was survival. Real strength came after, in the quiet, in the healing, in learning to be soft again without feeling unsafe. I hope you know that you deserve a life where love isn't a battlefield, where you don't have to fight to be chosen, where your peace isn't earned, it's expected. If someone has broken your heart, lied to your face, or made you feel small for needing more, know this. You are not broken. You are rebuilding. And someday you'll look back at this version of yourself, not with shame, but with pride. Because despite everything, you kept going. And that's heroic. So take a breath, unclench your jaw, stop rehearsing the what ifs. I made it here, and there is so much ahead. Better love, deeper joy, and a version of you that no betrayal could ever bury. I used to think closure came from confrontation, from hearing I'm sorry, from watching someone else suffer the way I did. But now I understand. Closure is quiet. It's waking up one day and not thinking about them first thing in the morning. It's laughing without flinching. It's telling your story without crying. It's the moment you realize you no longer need them to validate your pain. Your healing is enough. So, if you're still bleeding, still aching, still unsure, please hold on. The peace you're searching for, it's already waiting for you just on the other side of this hurt. And when you get there, you'll see it clearly. You were never the problem. You were the beginning of your own rescue. And that is something no one can ever take from you.